Matt, I cannot believe you did that.
Stop blaming me. It's your fault.
No, it's yours.
We're going to be talking about blame today, folks. So if you find yourself playing the blame game and thinking that it's going to make you feel more powerful at the end of it, and it kind of does. It's got kind of like this facade of power. But ultimately, we know where it leads. It leads us to a very victim-y, powerless place. Okay, we want to help you reframe your blame so that you can actually mine in for the growth opportunities that are underneath it, and you can actually have better relationships as a product.
Yes, you're going to want to listen to this one. Guys, stick around.
All right, see you in there. Hey, welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. My name is Matt.
And I'm Erin.
We're the Ingolds here, and we are your hosts, your Catholic coaches today for the next 30, 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
We're talking blame today.
Ooh.
The blame game.
This is good.
All right. Have you ever found yourself in the blame game? It often comes from a place where you're really hoping it'll make you feel very empowered, you know?
Yeah.
And what we find, the more we coach and we lean into it, it actually does the opposite. And so we're hoping it'll help us feel empowered, actually helps us feel, inclines us to feel more victim-y.
Yeah.
And what we want to invite you into today is to reframe your approach to the blame game. Reframe blame. Reframe blame.
Reframe blame.
Reframe blame. And we are, so we're actually going to be talking a little bit about blame, some of the common culprits, the things that we actually blame a lot. Mm-hmm. But then we're going to go into that reframe. We're going to go into some steps that actually walk you through a process of reframing that blame to end up in a much more empowering place.
Yes.
So, awesome.
So this was, I think the timing of this podcast is really helpful because I don't know, like if you're in the world these days, you notice that people, it's almost like a competition, like who is the biggest victim, you know, who is the most marginalized.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that's new, but it's just,
it's certainly louder.
I'm seeing it.
We'll just say it's louder now. It's, and I think there's like, it's such an irony because like you said, a lot of people think it's very empowering to blame others because then you're abdicating any responsibility. But it is one of the most powerless feelings that actually drives this action of blame.
Yes.
So if we were to define the word blame, it's the act. So it's an action. It's not an emotion. You don't feel like blaming, you know. It's an action. And we can do it interiorly and exteriorly. We can do it both. And most of the time we're doing it interiorly.
And then it comes out exteriorly.
Right. It makes its way out. Or sometimes it doesn't, but still there's like resentment build up and all that stuff. So blame is an act of assigning responsibility to someone or something for a fault, wrong, or mistake. Okay. So you are assigning responsibility to somebody else or a thing too. It often involves pointing out what is at fault rather than focusing on the problem itself or finding a solution.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to highlight here is that you said it's pointing out a fault, a wrong, or a mistake. Okay, and I love to insert the word perceived in here, right? Because our perceptions of a fault, a wrong, or a mistake can incline us to blame somebody, even if it's not necessarily a reality that there was a fault, a wrong, or a mistake that's there. So again, we're starting to already lean into how much of our own mindsets, our choices, our frames that we choose to look at a situation can kind of incline us towards this self-righteous, judgmental place of blaming or assigning blame.
Yeah. So, I mean, why is blame destructive? Well, it shifts us away from finding solutions. Right? Because if we can blame something or someone, now it's not on us to find a solution. But we're going to tell you that it is actually later on throughout this podcast. It's your choice to find a solution.
Absolutely.
I'll say that.
And that's like so empowering. And so like, again, if you're feeling inclined to blame and you feel super justified, okay, like that's what this process is going to help you with, because we always got to look at the fruits here, because oftentimes this justified place, it actually leads to this next thing that's a problem with blame, is it's very destructive to relationships. I mean, even look in to the garden. Okay, the woman who you put me with.
Yes,
here,
blame,
like
right.
it's
been
blame
with us
shifting. It's
from
been
the
with us in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So we see this as really a consequence of the fall here, and it certainly damages relationships in the same way that it did in Book of Genesis. Okay, stagnates personal growth too.
Well, I mean, that going back to that definition of what blame is, it's like you're focusing on the problem, but you're also assigning responsibility to somebody else. So now you're going, it's actually your responsibility to grow, not mine. Right? And what you're doing is you're actually abdicating an opportunity to grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the really sad parts about it.
Sad.
Is because we when we feel, and blaming often happens from these triggered places, and the triggered places want to correct something outside of us in order for us to feel better or more empowered in this case. And where we miss the mark is we miss these opportunities to even kind of lean into those triggers. Remember, triggers are trailheads, right? Where those fear things that are popping up that are inclining us to shift blame, those are often opportunities when we lean into those things where the Lord is saying, hey, I want to come in here. I want to enter into this place that I haven't been invited, or my charity has not yet been made perfect. And I want my perfect love to cast out that fear and stop inclining you to the blame. And so when there's great opportunities for growth there, that's even leaning into our reframe. What else do we got here?
Yeah. Well, it promotes victim mentality.
Boo.
Which is, I mean, it's kind of like, if we could like sum this whole thing up, it's that. It's like, that's what that is. Because every victim needs a villain, right? And the villain is the thing that you're blaming. The thing or the who that you're blaming, right? So, and it promotes that. It actually keeps it going, which is so powerless, guys. When you are a victim, like actually look up the definition of that word, victim. Like it's somebody who is actively being threatened or hurt or victimized in the moment. And then ask yourself, is that true?
I'll tell you what, I don't want to get into the specifics because it's still fresh. But I know I was in a place recently, like in the last 12 hours, where I was really feeling inclined to blame, very much so. And I knew that I needed to just walk away from the conversation at that point. I needed to create some sort of a space between me and the emotion that I was feeling at that moment. I needed to step out of that trigger-rich environment that I was in, because it was not going to lead to a productive place. And there were moments like, praise God, this is like growth. I'm claiming this. I was thinking this like, well, I want to just say this in response and this in response and push the blame off on this other person. And in that moment, I was just like, I know where that goes. I've done my work on this in the past. I know where this is going to go, and it's going to be way worse. And so I need to create that space right now, guys. And that's even part of the strategy, is creating a little bit of that emotional space, allowing those emotions to dissipate a little bit, and then being able to approach from a more rational place.
Yes.
It creates this negative cycle too, I think, blame.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Completely. I mean, yeah, it's just like, because it becomes addicting.
Well, it becomes it's a trigger-rich environment that you create. So when you're being blamed for something, be prepared to feel those triggers, and triggered people trigger. And so you just go back and forth in exchange with the other person that you're arguing with. And again, it just gets into this cycle of just irrational triggers and blame shifting, and no ownership, no growth that's taking place, and no solutions that you're even coming up with. I'm
just smiling because it's like, imagine if somebody blamed you and you were like, thank you for giving me all of your power. Because that's really what's happening. All right, if we're going to get right into this, I don't even want to go through this because that feels redundant. So I want to go back. So, guys, why blaming is so destructive? Obviously, we talked about just your own accountability. You're kind of giving that away. You're not growing. You're just destroying your relationships, and you're feeling powerless. Yeah. I would say the one that I really want to focus on is giving your power away, because that's really what's happening. So like, even in that example I just exchanged, like if Matt was blaming me, imagine if I responded not with blaming back, but I was just like, thank you for giving me all of your power, because that's what you're doing. And I promise you guys, listen here, if you do not do this work on blame, you may think that you're just going to stay the victim, but you will become the villain. You will.
Oh, and any sort of victim that never owns their stuff will always, they will become the villain. Even if you're just villainizing yourself,
yes,
you will become the villain. It's a rule. It's like, it will happen. Okay, so if you don't want to be the villain, I think some of us have a little bit of comfort with the victim because
yes,
there's something that feels powerful there, even if it's like, they have to change. I don't. It feels justified.
Like a learned helplessness type of thing.
Sure. I promise you this, you will turn into the villain at some point.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what are some of those common culprits? Where does this blame show up often that we find in coaching, Erin?
Okay. Yeah. There's what we have found there's three main or common culprits. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but there's more to these things.
I think it's pretty good.
Generalized, this is what it is, okay?
Yep.
Circumstances. So these are things outside of your control, like the world and the weather and your job and the government and the economy. And it's just these things that you can't really control,
Yep.
but trigger you. And then you go ahead and blame these things, right?
Yep.
So a way to kind of uncover if it's circumstances that you're blaming, just ask yourself, what am I blaming for my lack of freedom or happiness? Like out of these circumstances, what am I waiting for to happen so that I can be free and happy?
Okay,
I'm just waiting for the economy to get better so I can
circumstances
feel financial freedom, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So circumstances. Yep. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So the other one, there's three of them. So the second one is other people. And this is like their behaviors, their thoughts about you, their thoughts about politics, their emotions, their decisions, all those things. So that's other people. We blame other people. I mean, this is not new. I mean, when we're talking about blame, you guys are probably all going there first, right?
All you marriage coaches out there, how often does this come up?
Ooh.
I mean, it's just, especially in a relationship, it's, and this is where I like to, going back to like, there's underneath all of this, there's a real opportunity to grow, right? Yeah. And so if you're in a marriage relationship, and you find yourself blaming, or your spouse blaming you for things, and like triggering all this stuff going back and forth, there, in some ways, the original trigger that's underneath the blame is the marriage doing its work. Here's what I mean. Okay.
Yes.
So marriage is there to help us grow more perfect, right? As a gift to one another, but also more perfect so we can be made perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect. We can be with Him in heaven for all eternity. We need to be brought to completion and brought to perfection in order to spend eternity with God in heaven. That is what our marriage is meant to do for us, is meant to make us perfect. And these triggers have a way of identifying those areas that still need more perfecting.
Yes.
And we don't necessarily like that, right?
No.
The lie that always pops up for me is like, I need to be fully baked. I need to be done. I need to be perfect now. And I'm chasing after this rather than just being a person that's on pilgrimage, right? If you're already perfect, you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay? Just keep that in mind. If you're already perfect, you're dead. You're in heaven at that point, all right? So you're still here. You still need to be perfected. These triggers are popping up. That is just a trailhead for you to do some more of your work. And it starts with you doing your work with the Lord at that point, rather than fixing the other person so you don't have to do your work because the trigger goes away.
Now, you're talking about spouses, but I see this across the board. I see people with their children who blame their children. And the children aren't even acknowledging. It's like, I'm waiting for my children to get to this age so that I can actually be happier. I don't know, so I can actually pursue my dreams and be happier. I'm always you can actually do both. And in fact, that might make you a better mom. Yeah. Because there's an association of time, anything. Anyway, I think children is one of them. I think being a coach is another one. Yeah. I mean, I coach coaches on this all the time. My client's not doing the work. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, okay, so your client's not doing the work. What are you making that mean about you? Why are you blaming them? I mean, you could be just as transparent with them and just be like, hey, if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the same results that you would if you did do the work. And then you leave it at that. Yep. but like maybe you're making it mean that you are a terrible coach or whatever. You're not influencing them enough or whatever it is. So it's just, guys, we blame people all of the time.
Yeah. I think of an example of, so recently Sonia Corbett, a friend of ours, reached out to us. The Bible Evangelista reached out to us and she asked to review a new book, Love Heals, that she's getting ready to release. And so I got to pour through the manuscript, and she shares even a story in there about a moment where she was getting ready to go on a multi-day retreat or something like that. And all of a sudden she gets a call from the school and finds out that her son is behind on things. And she shares a story about how activated she got with it. And of course she feels inclined to blame, come down hard. And when she had and I love how she shares it in her book. She shares how she had kind of that, at least the habit of pausing and kind of saying, all right, what is coming up in me right now? And starting to do some work. And she realized that this was an opportunity that the Lord was putting in front of her, inviting her into a deeper healing of something in her own past. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean that there isn't a conversation that she had with her son or how she approaches it or anything, but having that healing up front allowed her to approach the conversation with her son from a place of love rather than fear, because where the fear was, she had brought the Lord in, and it transforms it so that she could show up in love, right? And it was so you could still have accountability, which is what blame, I think, is often trying, like the virtuous side of blame. We want to put accountability for a problem or an issue properly assigned.
Right. And with a solution.
With a solution. Yeah. That's different from, I need you to change so that I can feel a little bit differently so I don't have to do my own work. No, like the feeling differently is your work to do.
Yeah.
Which is what we're going to, we're the last part of our podcast here is helping you do that work.
Yeah. So some of the ways you can kind of uncover who you're blaming in your life, you may already know. But anybody who you are like applying, and this is across the board actually for all blame, is the two words, I can't. I can't do, I can't think, I can't feel, I can't make this decision until this person or this circumstances changes. Who are you giving that authority to? Ask yourself that question. That is very different than I'm going to go discuss this with my husband and we're going to decide this together versus I can't do this until he changes his mind on this. Very different. So there's an abdication for the second one, and then there's an agreement and transparency with the first.
Well, there's an abdication and also a usurpation that's taking place. When you're usurping something, you're taking authority over something that's not yours. So in the example you just gave, like until he changes his mind, which is under his authority, not anybody else's, like, until he changes his mind, then, and so that's going to incline us towards manipulation.
Yep.
We've got our Locus of Control podcast.
We have
Won't
tons
be this
of
one.
podcasts on that.
All right.
And then the final one, and this one kind of went under the radar for a while, but in my coaching, I kind of discovered this, and then it was like confirmed a little bit more by like just Albert Ellis, who's like the guy who...
It's kind of cool guy.
Started CBT. Yeah. But it's your own limiting beliefs and even emotions. Okay. So we have ways that we think. We have neural pathways that have been established over time that we have continued to choose. Okay. So there is a choice there. And I think that's where people get a little confused because they're like, wait, but I do have control over these things. And yet I'm still being a victim to them. So this has come up in coaching calls, right? Where people are like, I've just always felt this way. I've always believed this. And I'm like, okay.
Choose something else.
So like you can choose now, actually, if you want to continue to believe that. And I actually have ways that you can like start to move out of that. Or you can continue to stay there. Like, so this is your choice. But I've actually struggled with this myself, even in like habit change. I know, and I know this is a thought too, by the way. It's like, I know how I'm going to be feeling hours in the future, later on tonight. I know how I'm going to be feeling later on tonight, and immediately feeling victimized to that belief. And then also this belief that I'm going to be thinking a certain way. So like I was completely abdicating what I wanted to choose to think now.
Can you flesh out that example a little bit? Because it sounds like you're talking about it very generically.
Yes,
and
yes.
Tell me specifics.
Okay, so here's an example. I'm like, I try to set like a goal, and I'm like, I'm not going to do like mindless emotional eating later on in the day.
Okay.
But this thought that continues to come back is, I'm afraid to feel restless.
Okay.
So I'm allowing that emotion of restlessness, and then also that belief, I'm afraid to feel restless, to actually make a decision for me for later. Now I can give into that and go, yep, I just don't like it. Or I could say, I could actually choose to approach it in a different way. Like restlessness, not so scary. Right. Just like, I'm feeling like something in my body a little bit, and I'm having thoughts in my head. Like there's just another way to approach it.
So a little bit of a reframe where you don't have to feel victimized by the established neural pathway.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
That's
Got
right.
it. And what I like about each one of these things, the circumstances we blame, the people we blame, our own thought patterns that we blame, guys, it really follows this overlap of the 3 lies that the enemy tells us, right? And they are this: God is not good. People are not good. You are not good. Those are the 3 lies. Those are his playbook. He uses those 3 lies again and again and again. God is not good. Other people are not good. You are not good. And the same in the case of the circumstances. God is not good. He's not creating circumstances that are for your hope and your betterment rather than your destruction. Blaming other people. Other people are not good. And obviously, my thoughts, my own things, like I am no good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know what people might be thinking. Maybe you're thinking this or maybe not. But what if it's true that circumstance is awful? Yeah. What if it's true that person treated me poorly? What if it's true that all of these things, and I'm not arguing whether or not it's true, right? Also, you do have a perception that could be challenged, but we're not even going to go there. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to say it is true that
it was their fault.
That belief system was terrible or is terrible in your mind, and that it was their fault.
Or he shouldn't have said that.
It is true. But my question to you is, what is focusing on that getting you? Like, how is that serving you at all? Because when we fight for it being true, that tells me as a coach, you actually really, really like feeling powerless. Like that is what that actually indicates to me, because when you go, it's true, I'm focused on that person. That is the villain. What's the rest of the story? I'm being victimized. I'm powerless. So like fill in the gap. So my question to that isn't like, I'm not questioning if it's true, but I am questioning if it's good. Is that helpful? Is it serving you? Are you growing in virtue? Are you growing at all? So these are questions I want you guys to ask yourself. So moving forward to the actual practical application, if you have a pen and paper, you can grab one. And we're going to walk you through what to do when one of these triggers or this like blame triggers come up for you. Okay. I love the quote by Viktor Frankl, who says, between stimulus and response, which...
There's a space.
Yeah. By the way, Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp. We can all agree.
For 4 years.
Pretty awful,
Bad circumstances.
Right. Bad circumstances. It's not true.
Fact.
It is a fact, right? Find the lie. It is a fact. But this is a man who actually created logotherapy. And this is one of his quotes from living through that process, that scenario. Between stimulus and response. Okay, so a trigger, right? Something that's actually triggering you, that circumstance, that other person, your own belief system, your own emotions. Between that stimulus and your response, what you choose to do, there is a space. Okay, we're going to hold some space here. And in that space is our power. I'm going to say that really slowly because... this whole podcast is on powerlessness, which is blame, right? That's what we do. We blame from a place of powerlessness. So within that space is our power to choose our response. I could do a mic drop here, but I'm going to keep going. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Woo! Freedom!
Boom. All of it's choice. We get to choose. So if that, terrible economy comes at us, we can just remember this quote by Viktor Frankl and be like, economy is the stimulus. And I have a response. That's coming, but there is a space here. And within this is my freedom and also an opportunity for growth.
So when you see that $14.99 per pound steak.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Choose pork.
We could all agree that is true and truly ridiculous.
We are a pork-eating family now.
Yes.
Pulled pork. We're making some Cuban sandwiches.
That's right.
Man,
That's right.
It's raining pulled pork in this
That's
house.
Right.
All right.
So how do we walk people through this, Matt? Do you have like an example of something? I have one, but I mean, we can go through this and like give a live example.
So I can think back to an historic example.
Okay, great.
And it has to do with, it's a bit of a generic, and I imagine if there's any other people that have worked in parish or in ministry have dealt with this before, but it is bringing something up to your pastor and the pastor just going, no. Not really giving a clear reason for no.
Okay.
But just like sending an email and saying, no, I don't have time for this right now. And it's like, oh,
all right,
man.
I'm going to take that through.
Okay.
All right. So act as if you are in that space again, right? Because I want you to think of a recent example or a long ago example, because that's how we grow in these skills. We practice them. So first step is, okay, in that recent example or that example from far away.
Far away. Maybe not so far, but go ahead.
Who or what are you blaming for your lack of freedom or happiness?
The pastor.
Okay.
The pastor.
Okay. So these are the steps. I'm going to break this down. Think of a recent example and then identify who or what you were blaming, whether it's your belief system, whether it's circumstance or somebody else. Okay. And now do a verbal. If you guys are listening, you can write this down. Do a thought recon. A thought recon is just a brain dump. You're just writing all of your thoughts on why this particular circumstance, person, or limiting belief deserves your blame. So tell me all of your thoughts.
Okay. So this person is being clerical.
Okay.
This person is creating obstacles to apostolic movement. This person is complacent. This person is, all the stuff. So they're complacent. They are going to be or they don't have the right focus. They're going to cause more problems. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So a couple that I chose here, and then you guys want to choose one thought. Probably the one that feels the most powerless, too. That's probably the blame thought. This person will cause problems. There's that one. And then the other one is this person is creating obstacles to apostolic movement. Which one?
Oh, the obstacles to apostolic movement. That's
okay.
Really
Okay. So from your thought recon, go through it and be like, this one feels most powerless. This one does, and just choose one. Okay. So Matt, this person is creating obstacles to apostolic movement. How does that feel? Give me a one-word emotion from that thought.
I feel angry.
Angry. Okay. And then what would you do with that person? Like, would you withdraw from them?
I would withdraw and be like, all right, good luck.
Okay. Withdraw.
So, like, I will just withdraw and I would just surrender and be like, go ahead.
Resent them, blame them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Rejoice in their defeat. Schadenfreude.
Rejoice in defeat. Wow. So virtuous of you. Okay. So there's this thought, this sentence in his mind. Guys, notice this.
Work in progress.
I'm going to walk backwards real quick.
Yeah.
one person said no without any explanation. That was the circumstance, right?
Yeah.
It's this person. And then they did this thing. They had this behavior. And then you had many thoughts about that.
Lots of thoughts.
We captured one that seemed the most juicy and the most powerless feeling.
But you can capture any one.
Don't
get all melancholic and which one's the right? Just pick one. Okay.
That's coming from the melancholic too, by the way. It's not judgy. So anyway, so there's this thought. This person is creating obstacles to apostolic movement. That created an emotion of anger, actions of withdraw, resent, blame, and then rejoice in defeat.
Yeah, it was this whole kind of like the scripture that's coming to mind is like shaking the dust off the feet, but also like
throwing the shoes at them.
But also like when James and John were just like, do you want us to call down fire upon them or something like that? Yes. And Jesus is like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. And then
but in your fantasy, Jesus is like, yes. And he's like,
yes.
All right.
Oh, righteous one.
yes.
Yes, righteous one.
So glad we're on the same page, Matt, you and I. So anyway, okay. So
boy.
It's not the person saying no that deserves the blame. I want to make a disconnect here. That is the stimulus. And then there's that space between the response. Okay?
You saying I'm not using my space well?
I'm just saying.
Just saying, let's take a look.
Yeah.
You decide. Look at the fruits. By the fruits you will know them.
That's right.
Oh, look at all this charity showing up here.
Seriously.
It's like a big old Jesus love fest.
Exactly.
Cool.
So we chose a thought, then we choose a thought, and then we go with that. Okay. So what we're going to do, sorry, I'm like, okay. I'm trying to coach him live and then also walk you guys through this. Okay. So the next thing we do is we find out what that thought is, where it leads you, what emotion it leads you to, and then what actions you do. And then just look at the actions. It's probably showing up as blame. Blame is probably one of the actions. And so after that, take a look at it and ask yourself, we're going to capture that. And then we ask ourselves, is this thought serving me? Okay. Blame comes from a lot of self-protection. So a way to kind of counter that is to say, is this thought serving me?
Yeah. Is it really protecting what it claims to be protecting?
Is it actually serving me though? Look at all these actions I'm doing. Is it even serving the cause of the apostolic movement in this case?
No.
Right.
No, it's not. Yeah. No.
Another question you can ask it is this thought actually making me feel more empowered or powerless?
So as a cleric, I'm feeling very triggered right now
because
it is because it is a feeling of powerless. And it's just kind of like, stop asking good questions, Aaron.
All right. Well, you don't have to answer those. You can stay victim if you want. Cleric.
All right, keep going. Keep going.
But write these questions down. Everybody who's listening,
Hurry
write
up.
these questions
I'm in
down.
charge.
That's right. You are. Okay. Own it. The next thing is we have to own.
Do you feel in charge?
What is that from?
It's from Batman.
Oh.
I'm in charge here. Bane. Do you feel in charge?
I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
Yes.
Never mind. All
Yep.
right.
Okay. The second one, so we've captured it. We figured out where it leads us. We questioned it. Hey, is this really serving me? Is this actually making me feel more powerless or more empowered? And is it serving the mission, the thing that I actually want at the end of this? And then we want to own it. Own the thought. A way that I own my thoughts is I actually look at them as if they're typed out sentences in my brain.
Visual. sensory
Yes. Right.
preference here. Yep.
It's just like it's actually typed out, and I'm like, do I want that or do I not want that?
Yeah.
Do I want to continue that?
If you're kinesthetic, you may want to own the feeling of the
Yes.
thought or the sense, like the sensation of that thought, what comes up in your body. Auditory, even saying it out loud can be something that's helpful.
Yes.
Or like pretending to hear it out
And
loud.
listening to the tone of it too. I think that's actually really good for auditory.
Yeah.
But I think a great reminder sentence is like, I am choosing with my free will, with that space that where freedom lies, to continue to think this thought that is creating powerlessness and frustration and anger. Like, I'm continuing to choose this. There's something about just saying that and telling the truth. Okay? That kind of takes a lot of that powerlessness away. And it also helps you start to find a solution for it. This step is so huge.
Well, it's you start to reclaim what is really yours, what you've abdicated.
Yes.
All right. And so there's something about doing that, reclaiming what is in your locus of control, that starts to put things back into the authority structure, the proper order of authority. And when things are in their proper authority, when you have a respect for what thoughts are yours, what stuff you're going to allow somebody else to have their own emotions or their perceptions or their actions, when you surrender what's not yours and own what is yours, just stepping into that order is going to be, it's going to feel very empowering, because it is. Like, now you're stepping into the role of the steward.
That's right. And that's the next question is, am I stewarding this space, this freedom well?
Yeah.
Am I stewarding it well? Or am I continuing to choose this thought that's creating it? So even if you think about that thought as a sentence or how it makes you feel, that anger that's coming up, like,
or the tone of it.
This
right?
person is creating obstacles to apostolic movement. Like, now looking at it, do you want to continue to choose it?
No. And I've done some reframe work on this already, and it's just like, honestly, the one that's a lot better is like, oh, this person's just busy.
Totally.
This person's just busy. I can understand. This person's got a lot on their plate.
This might not be a priority to them. Yeah.
It's all right. Maybe there's a different angle that I can approach on this. Maybe there's somebody else that's not so busy. That might be a better way to go through this. Or maybe the Lord is just kind of saying, no, like, cultivate this kind of amongst the laity and build a bit of a movement that's already there, and then
point to that.
You can present it to the pastor as like, hey, this is something that's already happening. Is it blessing or because also the thought that not every apostolic movement needs to be blessed by the pastor. Yeah. Right. It's prayer groups. So many times people have these prayer groups, and it's nice when it's like underneath the umbrella of the parish. And I think there's something that's ordered there, but I don't think that everything needs to be under the specific umbrella of the parish. Yeah.
Which actually brings us to the final step here, which is make a choice moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if you have continued to believe this thought up until now, you can make a new choice right here, right now. And even if that choice is, I know I'm not going to focus on this thought anymore. That's legit. You could just like borrow that thought. Like, I know what I'm not going to be focusing on is that this person has all the authority, and I'm giving, and I'm angry about it, and I'm going to be focusing on all this lack. I just know what I'm not going to be focused on anymore moving forward. So that is the final step and it's so empowering. I just want you guys to see, because we did this in real time. When it was finally like, own it, and then ask yourself what you want to do with that freedom, suddenly your mind came up with all these other ideas.
And it's easy, and I feel lighter.
Yes.
I feel lighter.
Yes. So a couple questions you can ask to help you take a step forward is, what else can I think about or focus on that would help me grow in freedom or as a person, grow in charity? What else could I create that actually could fill in a gap here? Notice all of these questions are pointed towards things that you have responsibility and control to do. What am I going to do? What am I going to think? Whenever I coach people on like difficult conversations that they're going into, I always coach them on, okay, ownership, no matter what this person does. If they scream at the top of their lungs for you, at you, all of the stuff. What are you going to choose to do and think no matter what? Because that is up to you. That is absolutely up to you. Because you could be like, I can't believe they're screaming at me. You can get really mad about that. Or you could be like, they're screaming because they're thinking a thought that is very upsetting to them. There's so many other options. So,
a lot of great reframes that you can do with
yes,
this. So to
so
kind of
many.
like, we ready for a wrap up here, Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay, so just kind of wrapping up here, folks. Again, like those different circumstances or the people or the, interior blame, wherever those blame culprits are showing up in your life, just be aware of those things and then kind of move into that, some of those steps that Aaron was just sharing about, just getting curious about, is it really protecting ultimately, or
is it
who are you
serving
blaming? Is it serving you? Just kind of walking through that process. And if you want to have somebody actually walk you through this process, we have opportunities within our Academy Plus. You can jump in there. You can actually link up with a coach. But there's more workshops that we have like this that kind of walk you through, even some worksheets that walk you through some of the steps of greater self-leadership, right? So yeah, join us in the Academy here as well. And stay tuned for more to come from the Catholic Coaching Podcast.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
All right.
All of the things.
Cool.
All right, guys. See you in there.
See you guys.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.